Hello, in this video we will discuss about the anaphylaxis. So the anaphylaxis is basically the type 1 hypersensitivity. So this is due to the pollen allergy, but there are many factors which that is involved. For example, here we will discuss also. So the first of all, we should need to introduce the anaphylaxis. So the anaphylaxis is an systemic allergic reaction that can be life-threatening and is due to massive release of inflammatory mediators by mast cell and a basophil. So triggered by a wide variety of antigens, but most commonly by vaccines, drugs, insects, and reptiles venom, antimicrobials, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, and the glucocorticoids, opiates, and physical factors and cold and exercise. So these all factor basically the again I am saying that triggered by a wide variety of antigens, but most commonly by vaccines, drugs, insects, and reptile venom, antimicrobials, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medication, glucocorticoids, opiates, and physical factors, cold and exercise. So in this way, hypersensitive factor which that is due to the pollen or allergy or allergens, which that will stimulate the hypersensitive factors. So let's begin to understand the hypersensitive factor which that will target the differently in the different tissue. For example, the respiratory tract, which that constriction of the windpipe, and in this way the breathing less. And on the other hand, that affect the respiratory system. And here is the gastrointestinal tract, which that will be affected through a histamine production, and in this way the gastric acid secretion will be increased. While the cardiovascular disease can be occur, the tachycardia and increase the breathing and increase the heartbeat, and the dermal complication, and here skin complication, and here is the neurological and ocular. In neurological can be the sensory nerve stimulation, and each will be produced. So I hope you make sense about the pollen allergy or anaphylaxis. But this is not only pollen allergy, but there are many factors which that are collectively I am saying. So in this way, let's begin to understand the mechanism. So for example, here is a person which that is infected, and in this way the infected person which that is here is the lungs of the infected person. So before the infection, the pollen allergen will be enter, for example. After this, here is the blood vessel, and basically lungs contain macrophage. After the recognition of the allergen will recognize, and in this way the dendritic cell and macrophage will stimulate the Th2 cells. After this, the Th2 cell will give the antigen as an antigen presentation to the B cell via a CD4 molecule. And in this way, the T cell receptor are present in the B cell. And in this way, the B cell are also recognized via a allergen bind with the antibodies. So in this way, it will be proliferate and convert into the plasma cell as well as B memory cell. B memory cell is used for the long-term adaptive immunity. While here the plasma cell will produce quick response and produce the antibodies for the current infection. So in this way, here is the Fc receptor are present in the sensitized mast cell. After the Fc receptor, the antibodies will be bound. The type of antibody can be in immunoglobulin IgE, and in this way, the allergen will bind with the upper part, not Fc portion. And in this way, after the binding, the recognition of the allergen will produce the vasoactive amines. That vasoactive amines can be differently, and this is the primary mediators, remember. And this lead to exocytosis of the granules from the mast cell. After the mast cell, the production of the granules, and this granule will target the different tissue. So the target of the tissue can be the through a vasoactive amines, for example, histamine, eosinophil, and sensory nerve ending. And in this way, it will be targeted to the sensory nerve ending and smooth muscle cells. So the sensory nerve ending will stimulate more nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system will lead to vasoconstriction due to the adrenaline secretion. The adrenergic nerves will be active. So the smooth muscle cell will be active, and the platelets will be active, lead to clotting factor, and in this way the blood will be clot and lead to hypertension. And the small blood vessel will constrict, and due to the constriction also the platelets will be clotting. After the clotting, the small blood vessel will be constrict, and the mucus gland will produce the mucus. That is why during the allergen, so the during the infected person, the produce more mucus in during the coughing. So here you can see this is the primary mediators. Primary mediators is the histamine and blood used for the blood clot, gastrointestinal acid secretion, adrenaline, which that is used for the vasoconstriction, vasodilation, the different region, and heparin. Heparin is also used, and the tryptase, serotonin, and cytokines. Basically, this will be inhibit when the beneficial effect of hyper basically the H1 antihistamines, which that will inhibit this effect. And in this way here is let's begin to understand the beneficial effect of histamine 1 receptor inhibition through antihistamine. So in this way the increase the agonistic H1 antihistamine will bind with the H1 receptor. After the binding will not no more work, and the histamine will not bind with a different tissue. So in this way, here is the necrotic factor kappa B and calcium channel modulated anti-allergic effect. So in this way, here is the necrotic factor kappa B and calcium channel modulated and anti-allergic effect. In this way, how it's possible? First of all, we should need to understand the mechanism of the allergic reaction. So here is the GRB and G alpha, which that will be activated after the histamine binding, will lead to activate the G alpha Q with the GTP, and activate the phospholipase C beta, will activate the PIP2 into the DAG and IP3, inositol triphosphate. And in this way, the protein kinase C beta will stimulate the necrotic factor kappa B. And this necrotic factor kappa B will lead to antigen presentation decrease, chemotactic factors will be decreased, and the expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines and cell adhesion will be decreased if the antihistamine will be work. If this antihistamine will not work, so in this way it will lead to increase the inflammation, antigen presentation will be increased, and chemotactic factor will be increased, expression of pro-inflammatory cytokine cell adhesion will be increased. So here the calcium channel also allow to move the mediator release, and due to the calcium move inside, and mediator release will be decreased if the calcium will not move inside. And in this way the mast cell and IP3 will be stimulate the endoplasmic reticulum for efflux of the calcium through a calcium sensitivity through a IP3. And in this way it will be when inhibit that H1 antihistamines, and in this way the antihistamines drug which that will inhibit. So in this way the smooth muscle contraction, nerve stimulation, vasoconstriction, and vasodilation will be increase. If it will not cascade of phosphorylation will lead to inhibit these things and these factors. And in this way, remember, let's begin to understand the here is the increased agonistic H1 antihistamine when bind. So the H1 receptor will bind with the histamine, and in this way the GRB will be inactive. So in this way it will be inhibit the sensory nerve stimulation, as well as it will be inhibit the antigen presentation and the inflammatory and chemotactic factors, and expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines and cell adhesion will be decreased. Why? Because the receptor will not working. So potential adverse effect of first old generation, not cold, old generation H1 antihypertensive. So in this way, the potential adverse effect of first old generation histamine 1 receptors, the antihypertensive. So how? So here is, you can see the central nervous system contain H1 receptor. So the alertness will be decreased because the histamine will not bind, and there are a lot of things will be not bind. For example, the serotonin, and there are many things. So the cognition and learning, memory, psychomotor performance, and impairment with or without sedation, basically it will be increased, while this all things will be decreased because the central nervous system will combine with this receptor. So the other stimulators, for example, will be decreased, inhibit, so that will be not adrenaline will not bind, and other serotonin will not bind. So the muscarine receptor will also bind with the H1 antihistamines. So it means the dry mouth increase, urinary retention, sinus and tachycardia will be increased. Why? Because dry mouth due to the secretion stimulation will be inhibited. Because the antihistamine will bind with this receptor, H1 receptor. So in this way, the vasoconstriction and vasodilation will also inhibit, and the serotonin basically is also inhibit due to the histamine antihistamine binding. So in this way, the dizziness, postural hypertension, and cardiac ion channels and QT intervals will be increased. So thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question in the comment below. So thanks. Bye.